This podcast will fail, mostly because nobody's going to listen to it. But you might prove me wrong. Who knows? Episode 34, and this podcast will fail. I am just some guy. Who I am and where I am is completely irrelevant to the conversations that I come here to have with you, and mostly myself. But today, I decided to do something a little different. So I am sitting in a lounge chair in my dining room, because we don't have an actual dining room. We've converted that into a makeshift storage space and sitting area, with my 15-year-old daughter, who shall, like myself, remain nameless. Say hello.
Hi.
Hi. So, I've mentioned a couple times how with this podcast, basically, you don't really know much about it, do you? No. Shakes her head no. I just decided, since I was frustrated and tired of YouTube and just feeling like nothing I made was going anywhere, nobody's watching anything, nobody could give a crap about my stuff, I thought, you know what, I'm going to turn a stupid recorder on every single day, and I'm just going to talk, and I'm going to post it, and I'm not going to do any social media, and I'm not going to promote it, and I'm not going to do any other daggone thing, and just see what happens. You know what happens?
No.
Oddly, 2 or 3 people have been listening to it every single day. The funny thing about that is, I have no way for them to tell me that they're listening to it, because I've put no social media. There's no messaging. There's no anywhere. There's no email address. There's no link to subscribe. None of that crap. But I know that I've wanted to have conversations with people. And this season on the podcast, the season is titled Life, Society, and Self. So all day today, it's Sunday. This is Sunday. I'm home with the family. We're all just kind of doing a whole lot of nothing. I just scooped out all the pumpkins for Halloween, and the pumpkin seeds are currently roasting in the oven. And I have nothing to talk about at all. Because normally what I do is I try to find something that catches my attention, something to talk about, people that I interact with at work, or stupid people I see in the store, or some dumb subject that catches my attention. And I thought, I'm hanging out here with my oldest daughter. She is child number 4 out of 6, and the oldest girl. And I thought, this might be an interesting opportunity to talk to somebody who has a different point of view than myself. So she's like looking at me like I'm nuts, and that's okay, because I am. And she only vaguely agreed to do this anyway, so I won't put too much pressure on her. But I wanted to see and get some basic impressions about the world as seen through the eyes of a 15-year-old girl. Now, what I also will say is that you're not like most 15-year-old girls that I know of or see, right? You're not, and I feel like so freaking lucky for this fact, but you're not like pretentious, right? You're not self-absorbed. You're not into obnoxious pop culture things that teenage girls are into.
Expensive clothing.
Oh my God, expensive clothing, makeup, any of that. You're like a chill dude.
Yeah.
But I know what the world looks like to the eyes of, 44-year-old parents. But I don't know what things look like to you right now. So, a little bit more context. You're all homeschooled at this point, right? All our kids are homeschooled. I'm not putting my children into these school buildings that keep having outbreaks and shutting down because of COVID infections. So the kids they're all home. You've been homeschooled a little bit longer. So we're all kind of insulated, but I know that you are tech savvy and you are in the online world looking at things and listening to YouTube channels that you enjoy. What does the world look like right now through the eyes of a 15-year-old?
A lot of men trying to like control what's happening, trying to figure it out and make it what they want. And a lot of just older people trying to make it what they want.
So, older people, do you in your viewpoint when you say that term, old people, and you're right, unfortunately, there's a heck of a lot more people that look like me and have the same gender I do that seem to be in charge of a lot of things. But do you see like all adults as part of the same group? In other words, I'm going to be 45 next week, but your grandfather, for example, is 72 or 3 or 4. I don't even know how old Papa is now, but you know, or you see like, you know, straight up white-haired old men, right? To you, do you find any difference between those generations in your mind?
I don't think the generation matters much. It's kind of more what you put out. Like, if you're the type of person that's like, I don't know, looks at some kid and is like, where are his parents? Like, how could he be wearing a tank top in the grocery store? Or if you're just like putting out more positive stuff.
Okay. And what do you think is, besides the obvious stuff, okay, right? The obvious thing is COVID and the virus, right? The world is terrified of itself. The world is very deeply divided on things. But what is the one thing that you wish could be fixed right now by those quote-unquote people who are trying to control everything?
Probably that they still won't let go of toxic masculinity. They
Okay.
won't let go.
So let me ask you this: when you're laying that subject out a little bit, one of the things that came to mind was an article I caught the other day about the body shaming incident with Billie Eilish. Okay, so was that am I pointing to the right example of what
That's-
you're talking about?
That's an example. I don't know if that's as much like toxic masculinity as much as just people like,
Suck.
yeah, trying to make anything out of nothing, trying to push people down. That's just kind of what happens in the media. But what I'm talking about more is like people thinking that men have to be the big strong ones. They have to be the one to tell people what to do. You know, they have to be the ones to stand up and govern.
Okay. So do you think that there's not enough quote-unquote female representation in the halls of power, in the decision makers, you know, in the room where it happens, the room where it happens, right? There's
Yeah.
not enough women in the room where it happens.
Definitely. Because people don't want to let that happen, because the main point that people bring up is, well, they're too emotional to be running things, which doesn't make sense compared to the people running things right now.
And it's interesting because, you know, you see a men, when you talk about the emotion that may play into a decision maker, it's anger. It's never like hopeful or,
Yeah.
right?
They think that the emotion that women would have would be that they're too sensitive, and maybe they think that they'll like get upset over something and do something crazy, but they ignore when the like male politicians and stuff get so angry over something that they mess something up really big. It's not emotion in that term to people. It's just, oh, they made a mistake.
So though you're saying that it feels like maybe there's no accountability on them. They can get away with anything. They can say anything and do anything, and it doesn't matter.
Definitely.
All right. What would you say is something really good about the world right now?
I don't know. I guess one really good thing, it's not really as much the whole world, but a lot of the, teenage people, younger people in like my group area, are now talking about more stuff about like, hey, your body's fine, their body's fine. They're talking about how, like, anybody can be anybody. You can, if you feel comfortable with a different pronoun, that's your choice and nobody else's. Like, your body is you, and it's nobody else's. So that movement is a really good thing in the world.
Where do you think that goes, say, by the time you're my age, right? Because here's the thing. I look at it and recognize that I was effectively a child of the 80s, right? I was born in the 70s, but I don't remember none of that. I grew up in my formative memory-making years as a young child and teenager are in the 80s into the 90s. And at that point, there was a quote-unquote acceptance, sort of, or at least acknowledgement of homosexuality. But it was still scorned. We'll edit that part out. It was still derided. It was still looked down on in regular society. That was the dirty counterculture, right? It took, but there was so much quote unquote progress between the 60s and 70s before it ever got to me in the 80s, and yet here we are. It's almost 35, 40 years later.
It's still up for debate.
It's still up for debate somehow.
Yeah.
But it does seem like your generation and like your oldest brother's generation, that seems like you've grabbed the reins a little bit and have said, no. This is who we are.
Yep.
And you don't get to tell us anymore.
Yep.
But do you think it takes another 30 years to where it is actually acceptable? Like, okay, example, you and I know somebody, I won't say who it is, but who has, over the course of the last year that we have known them, they have struggled through their own personal pronoun journey, and they've really politely, quietly asked for people to change a couple of times in the time that I've known this person. And we got to the when, we got to the they, because it was like, I don't know. And I had a conversation with this individual when they were in the car with me, and really trying to lay it out, and had a real tough time articulating it. Now, recently, that person has settled on he, even though biologically they were born with female organs, right? And I have no idea if this person intends to physically transition at some point when they're an adult or not. But do you think that person has another 20 years worth of struggle in their life to get to a point where the average,
Well, I think it's gonna take a long time. Like, the perfect world in terms of, like, sexuality and stuff would be that you are born as, you don't have a gender other than your sex, and you don't have a preference on sexual partners until you're old enough. And it doesn't really make sense why there is the whole, like, you're born straight thing, because it's a child. But if you were born as someone, maybe born and they were just say, okay, you like whoever you like, but we don't have to figure that out, then it would be a lot easier to, like, say it. Like, oh, I decided I like girls, or I like guys, or I don't like either. It would be a lot easier to differentiate if it's, like some people say, if it's just a phase. Because there are sometimes phases, but sometimes it's not. A lot of times it's not.
Do you think that there are young parents out there, the older 20-somethings, or even the 25-year-old, like the 25 to 35 demographic parent right now, that may be more open-minded and awakened to these concepts that you just laid out? Do you think that there are areas in that group where they are doing harm?
Yes.
By making this a big issue for this 3-year-old, this 4-year-old, this 5-year-old, right? And trying to force rather than allowing it to just happen, right? Not reinforcing any particular gender, role, or identity.
Yeah.
But maybe in some cases, counterproductive.
Yeah.
Trying to put it out there too soon.
There have been some people that have decided that their 2-year-old is transgender just because they wanted to play with a truck, and those children end up really confused most of the time because one parent's telling them, no, you're a boy, and the other one's telling them that you're a girl. I think it would be better to just, depending on what they feel like at the time, then you call them by that gender, or you just call them by no gender at all. Say it's their sibby, not their sister or brother. Or it's my child, not my daughter or son. Or if they feel like, even a 4-year-old is like, I feel like a girl today. Okay, I'll call you she today. And if you change your mind, it's okay, you're a 4-year-old. It doesn't really matter that much.
There's hope for the world indeed. All right, last question. What do you look forward to the most when you become an adult? I think the underlying question in that is, what do you want to be when you grow up? You're 15.
Yeah. For the past while, I've been wanting to work. My whole life I've wanted to work with either children or animals. I've kind of decided I don't want to work with animals because that's a lot of science, and I'm really bad at science. But I could volunteer with animals. So I've kind of decided I want to help children. I want to maybe do child psychology, maybe social work. Just help the children that don't have like a home to go to, because I've always had a home and they might not. And I'm really excited to be able to vote because it's really frustrating watching all the stuff, the debate on the TV and not being able to do anything, and watching my Instagram tell me to register to vote, but I can't.
And you will be in the next election.
I will.
You will be there. You'll be 19, right? The next election. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Like, one of your older brothers is voting for the first time this election, so that's really good.
Yep.
Well, kiddo, thank you. Thank you for talking on the podcast. That was a good conversation.
Yeah.
I might make the rounds and talk to some of your other siblings here or there. Let's get their perspectives on things from time to time, and who knows, maybe down the road somewhere I'll swing back around and go, all right, hey you who shall remain nameless 15-year-old girl.
15-year-old child.
Let's talk about this again and see what's on your mind today. All right, well, that's going to do it. I'm going to stop there. And anybody that started the podcast today, thank you very much. I know you're not still here 20 minutes later, and if you are, then you're a friggin' rock star. And we appreciate it very much. But that'll do it. I'm done for today. I'm going to go check on my pumpkin seeds, and then it's cold as frickin' all get out, and I'm going to go crawl under the covers. So say goodbye.
Bye.
Bye. And wherever you are, I hope you're having a great day, and talk to you next time. Have a good one.